Hi, my name is Scott Wallace. I'm the National Consumer Products Manager with Smokin'Tex, and today I would like to take some time and talk with you folks about cooking a brisket. Hopefully you've already seen our additional videos. You can go to YouTube at www.youtube.com, do a search for Smokin'Tex, and you'll see some of the other videos that are up there. We've got a real good one on cooking turkeys, and we've got a lot of good videos up there that a lot of our customers have contributed. I'm going to start with the basics here today. I know there's a lot of cooks out there. I know you guys are way better at this than I am. You cooked way more of them and you've all got your own way of doing it, but this is for the beginners. This is for the guys, the ladies and gents out there who haven't cooked a brisket before. So by all means follow along. Maybe you'll pick up a tip or two, or maybe you can add your own video up there and show us how you like to do it. Now this brisket came from the local Sam's. I like to buy my briskets from Costco or Sam's. There's a couple of critical things that you're looking for when you buy a brisket, and it really can make the difference in whether or not you get a good brisket. You want to buy select grade or better. This is a select brisket. I get lucky sometimes at my local Sam's and I'll actually end up getting prime for the same price as select. This was about $2 a pound, and in this case it just so happens to be, as it's marked here, Angus beef. So I expect this brisket is really going to be top of the line. When I buy a brisket, I'm looking for a packer's cut. Now they won't always be marked that way, but it's real easy to tell because a packer's cut will have a wedge shape. It'll be narrow at the end and it'll have this point on one end, which is considered the decal or the point, and that tells you that you're getting the full brisket. You'll probably have pretty close to a 25-30% fat ratio to meat content, and you want that fat. That fat cooking down into the meat is what gives the brisket its tenderness. What I do with these guys, now understand I cook probably on average around 20 to 30 briskets a month, and I cook them 10 at a time, but today we're just going to cook one, and we're going to do it in the Model 1400. The first thing I do when I get one of these guys home is, of course, I cut it open from its packaging, take it over to the sink, and I wash it if you want to. So give me just a minute, I'll be right back. I'm going to wash this, and we'll talk about the rub. Okay, we're back. All I've done is wash the brisket off in cold water, put my spices together. We're going to go through that in just a minute. One thing I did not show you before that I'd like to talk to you about, meant to show you while it was still in the package, one thing you can use kind of as a tip when you're buying one of these briskets, and you can see it here, look how flexible this brisket is. Okay, if you pick your brisket up in the plastic wrapper at the store and it's stiff and hard as a board, it does not matter what you do in the cooking process, that brisket is probably going to turn out tough. Okay? Now I know everybody has their own special magic for how they like to approach this, and you're certainly welcome to do an injection. You know, you can do a marinade, you can do a brine. There's all types of approaches for what you can do in terms of infusing spice flavor into the brisket. I'll tell you that with as many briskets as I cook a month, as often as I cook them, and as many people as I feed, I want a generic type of approach. I want to appeal to a lot of people, and I believe in the KISS principle. I keep it real simple. Okay? My rub consists of nothing more than equal parts paprika, equal parts salt, and equal parts pepper, black pepper. That's it. Good Texas barbecue rub. Now you're certainly welcome to add some garlic powder to that. You can add some onion powder. You can put any kind of twist, cumin, chili, cayenne if you want a little kick, any kind of twist you want on it. But this is what I do, and I can tell you I have a lot of folks walk away from my booth at the trade shows telling me it's the best brisket they've ever eaten. So don't be afraid to keep it simple. Now I use a plastic container where I can keep this, so I usually have a lot of it on hand already, but I'm going to mix a little bit up for you here real quick. Again, all I'm going to do, and it's not rocket science, we don't have to get carried away with the proportions or be super critical, but I'm looking for a good Spanish paprika. We've got, I just had somebody recently talk about smoked paprika and that they like to use smoked paprika. Well, don't be afraid to experiment a little bit, try some new things, but if you want something that I know is tried and true and going to turn out the same every single time, this is a great way to do it. So once I get all these three spices together, I'm just going to stir them up. And ladle them on. You can add a little turbinado to this. I don't typically do brown sugar or turbinado on my beef rubs. Now, if this were a pork butt, or say some baby back ribs, then this is the foundation for my pork rub. I use the same 3 ingredients: black pepper, salt, paprika, and as an equal 4th part, I add turbinado if I'm doing pork. Now, of course, sometimes if I'm cooking for my family, I don't mind adding a little ginger for pork, or some cumin or coriander, make it a little different. But definitely when I'm feeding the public, I like to keep it simple. Either these 3 or those 4 ingredients are all I use. Now, you'll notice, I know a lot of guys like to cut slits in the brisket and work the spices down in there. Again, I'm cooking usually on an assembly line, 10 of these babies at a time. I don't get carried away with it. I start with the top, just put a nice, even coverage of this on there. I'll pull up my edges, get it on the edges. That's where it'll really soak into the meat. And then I do the bottom side. This is where we want to really get it penetrated into that meat. It'll give us a nice, this will help with our bark. You know, a lot of customers ask, well, what can I do to increase my bark? You can certainly thin some mustard down, rub it with a bit of a mustard paste, and then come back and sprinkle on your rub. And that'll help improve your bark, thicken your bark up. A lot of that is dependent upon the kind of wood that you use as well in your smoking process. So I'm just going to make sure I get this into kind of all the ends and edges, because a lot of people, that's their favorite part, is right there at the end where you get all that spice rubbed into the meat. Now, this is one of those processes where you either like this or you don't. Like I say, I like to get my daughters to do it, but unfortunately they're not around. Okay, this baby is ready to go in the smoker. And I like to let this sit on the counter. I like to let it sit for at least 30 minutes. I like for it to have an opportunity to start to absorb some of this spice, let it sink in, that kind of thing. And it'll help it come a little closer to room temperature. It'll still be pretty cold when you put it in the smoker. But this one is about an 11-pound brisket, and it's ready to go in the smoker. All right, we're back. We're outside now, and it's June in Texas, and it's 95 degrees in the shade, so you folks bear with me. There's nothing like watching a bald fat boy dressed in black sweat, but we'll get through this. I've got the smoker pretty much ready. I've already put my foil down. I've got my shelves in. Now this is my wood box here, okay? And you can see I have a little piece of charcoal left in here from the last smoke. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave that in here because that'll give a little nitrate release to the smoke and actually add a little bit more of a smoke ring to the brisket while it cooks. Now I'm going to set this down here on the ground. I have my smoke chips here. These are hickory. This is about a half cup. Well, no, this is a half a cup measuring spoon. For brisket or heavy beef like this, I don't mind a heavier smoke flavor, and I'm willing to use a little more smoke chips to get that. So I'm just going to kind of measure that out. Not rocket science here. It doesn't take a lot of wood. A little bit of wood goes a long way. We're going to just throw a little bit more in here because, like I said, this is beef brisket. It's a heavier cut of meat, and it can take a little more wood. But on average, cooking in this smoker, I'm typically using somewhere between a quarter to a half a cup of wood chips for the whatever I'm cooking. It just does not take a lot of wood to get a good smoke flavor. Now, I've got my brisket over here, and it's pretty much ready to load in. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to put it here on the top shelf, right here. The door's on a little bit of an angle, so it keeps wanting to slide down. Just going to pick this baby up, run my fork in there, slide under, and I'm going to set it here on the top shelf, slide it in. Now, it's not hypercritical here. Don't be real hung up. If you touch the sides a little bit or something while it's cooking, it's certainly going to shrink as you cook it. You can tell from the way I have my smoker set up now, I've got it actually on the lower position. I could scoot this up to the next position up, and I could get 2 more briskets in here. So you can do 3, like I said, this is about 11 pounder. I could go a 12. You could do 3 12 pounders in here, no problem. And that'll feed a whole lot of people, I promise. So at this point, all I need to do is latch my door, set my temperature to 200 degrees, and I'm ready to cook. Now for a brisket, I like to cook about 1 hour per pound plus 2 hours, okay, at 200 degrees. The secret to a good brisket is that you want to bring it as slowly and gently up to an internal temperature of 195 degrees for the maximum tenderness. That's where the fat will render, break down the cell structure of the meat, and make it nice and tender. So for a brisket like this, I'm figuring about 12, 13 hours, and it's going to be perfect. This big boy's been cooking for 13 hours. It just slipped the meat probe into it. It's 196 degrees. It's golden. It's ready to go. You can see it shrunk a little bit while we cooked it. That's nice. You're certainly welcome to use the remote probes with the smoker and monitor that temperature. We actually sell a probe that will go into the brisket here, and the wires come out to the top. You set your control piece up here, and you can monitor the temperature of that brisket while you're cooking it. I cook so many of them, I cook by time. I know about how long they take, and this one's ready to go. It's perfect. So we're going to slide it out of the smoker, take it into the kitchen, and I'll just let you see how juicy and tender these babies are. Now this is a bit of a tricky point here because they are really tender, and you don't want that guy to start falling apart until you're ready to slice it. So got that on the pan. We're going to take that inside. Now honestly, for cleanup, all I'm doing here, I'll rinse these guys off or maybe wipe them down about every 4th or 5th time. I'll take these out. Your side rails slip up and off. All of that can fit in your dishwasher. You happen to get a little hot food or grease on the door or the sides, just take a warm damp rag and wipe it down. But as you can see, you really want that seasoning to build up. That's personality, that's flavor, and it'll give you good food. See you back at the kitchen. Alright, we're back in the kitchen, and I've just about recovered from the heat outside. A few more minutes in the AC, I may feel normal again. There's a whole crowd of people standing around here right now waiting to devour this brisket, but fortunately I have extremely sharp utensils here, and I've managed to hold them off for a couple minutes so you guys can see how this turned out. This is straight out of the smoker. If I were doing a trade show or something, and this is a tip you might can use for home, I would now be taking and putting this into a vacuum seal bag, or wrapping it up very well in saran wrap and then triple wrapping it in full and putting it in my freezer. Don't be afraid to pre-cook these guys. The day you want to serve, take it out, put it in the smoker or put it in your normal oven at about 225, 250, about 3 hours. You want to bring it up. I like to serve brisket at an internal temperature of about 165 or 170. So you can certainly pre-cook a brisket and reheat it the day that you're having your party. And you can cook more briskets that way if you need to. But this guy's out of the oven. We're ready to go. And I'm just going to give you a glimpse of how this looks. As you can see, my knife is just falling through that, and it is very, very juicy. Very tender, very juicy. I'm just going to start cutting some slices here, and that is ready to go. I could just about start pulling this apart, as you can see. I mean, it's just that tender. That's good stuff right there. I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm going to take a little bite here in just a minute. Before I do, I want to point out something to you. Now, we're a smoker company. We're not a barbecue sauce company. But I'll tell you, you'll be hard-pressed to find a combination of flavors that go together as well as smoked beef brisket and our barbecue sauce. It's a match made in heaven. The sauce has just enough initial wang or kick to it, and it finishes real soft with just a real smooth kick. It's a great complement to this smoked beef flavor. So, okay, I can use fingers. I live here. I'm going to talk with my mouth full, but that's great stuff. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Hey, stay tuned. We're going to do some videos on cold smoking, maybe some ribs, maybe even do a prime rib for you guys. So stay tuned to watch our homepage and check YouTube for new videos.